Principal Teacher, Madam Chemistry, Professor Himanshu, other assistant professors, and my dear future lawyers and legal professionals. Himanshu sir just appreciated your large attendance, and I am very well aware that this attendance was forced upon you. But let me assure you that my long experience of 40 years, I will not bore you with the legal jargons. In fact, my experiences as a media person will interest you to some extent, because it will be something quite different from what you have been hearing in your classrooms so far. So, thank you for the attendance anyway, and now I look forward to your patient hearing through maybe another half an hour, 40 minutes. I assure you that though some of it may not be, I will try to be as simple in my language as possible. But if you have questions even in between, you can raise your hands and pose the questions. It won't break the discipline of the proceedings today. It may be a little different, but I would like to interact with you all more. I am here to talk about the role of media. Being World Broadcasting Day, as everyone has told you, that today was the day when the first broadcast started from the Radio Club of Bombay. And also the next day was Radio Club of Calcutta, followed by Tiruchirappalli and Delhi, then Lucknow and Madras. After independence, we had only these seats, 6 of them. But later on, it became a very big thing. Now we can get one of the biggest radio networks in the world. The importance of this day is to acknowledge the importance of radio. But now everything has changed. Today, when you talk of radio, when you talk of broadcasting, it is not about radio. Anything you do, any media, maybe print, electronic, everything is broadcasting. And now there are no journalists only in the media. Today, every citizen is a journalist because of the social media platform available to each one of you. So everybody is a journalist. Tomorrow, when you see something wrong in your neighborhood, you can report it. And that makes citizen journalism the in thing today. So when I talk about the role of media, I am talking about your role as a citizen, as a media person now. Earlier we used to be very privileged class because very few of us used to be media people. Now all of you are privileged class. To highlight the importance of radio, I know your generation must have not seen that much importance of radio, but being World Broadcasting Day, I will bring to you a small, what you can call it, a small reference, for showing the importance of radio. There was a person who joined Indian Navy in around 1946. He joined the Indian Navy. And Indian Navy, you have 8 months on the ship and 3 or 4 months on shore. So this man joined the Indian Navy in 1946. got married in 1954. He brought a girl from Kerala, a small village in Kerala, and he got married in 1954. And after that, 4 years, 55, 56, 57, and 59, he had 4 children. And after this, in 1960, after having 4 children in up to 1959, in 1960, suddenly one day, he went missing. This naval cadet went missing. Now what happened after that? This lady who had just married and come to Bombay for the first time from Kerala with 4 children, suddenly was informed that the husband is going somewhere, but nobody knows where. And this lady, with her 4 kids, the eldest of them being around 4 years old, was glued to the radio because that was the only source of getting information. One day, 2 days, 3 days, no news. And these 3, 4 little children with the mother is listening to the radio. No news. After 3 days, the news comes that all the sailors who went are returning home. What happened was, these sailors were on a secret mission. They went to liberate Goa from the Portuguese. And so nobody was informed. The family was not informed. It must be a secret operation. They went. And they came back. They surrounded Goa, the Portuguese ran away. They left, they surrendered. And not a single shot was fired. They came back. Now this is a small incident. But then, what I wanted to highlight by telling you this was the utility of the radio in such a situation, especially disaster situations, war situations. It became the only mode of communication for the family. But the eldest son, who was with them, was a little more mature than his age. So what used to happen is, whenever he heard that music, that signature music of All India Radio, Vivid Bharat, Hava Behal ka signature tune hota. That tune, whenever he heard, he used to get the beat, the goosebumps. That he used to remember that weight, that anguish, and it remained with him almost till he went to college. That was the impact of radio. Now, this impact of radio, if any of you know about Dinakal Ek Mara, Amin Sahni's voice at that time, it became legendary. It became legendary because it not only promoted Bollywood songs, but the first radio network in Asia was Radio Ceylon. And this was being highlighted from there, Radio Ceylon. Now, these things in our time is not what your generation has seen, but today on World Broadcasting Day it is very important that we remember these moments that radio has given to us. Of course, playing a very crucial role in the lives of people at that time. We went through 2-3 wars, the 1971 Bangladesh War, the 1962 China War, after this Goa War. And during all these war times, many of us who enjoyed listening to cricket commentaries of Vijay Merchant and others at that time, they were very popular. But war times, everybody used to be glued to the radio only to listen to the war stories. Though nothing came forward because it was controlled by the government, the government released only what they wanted to release. China was a very big debacle for India. We lost the war very badly. But still date, there is a debate on the reasons for losing the war, but the truth has not come out. But nevertheless, everybody, as we all are today, hope to Netflix and other serials, that time everybody used to be glued to the radio. Only to listen to what has happened in the war. The 62 war of China, the 65 war of Pakistan, the 71 war of liberating Bangladesh. These were the things that radio really brought to us. But during this period, there were disasters. There was famine, there were earthquakes, the tsunami. And in many of these places, radio played a very, very vital role. You all won't believe the importance that radio had at that time. Today you are used to seeing everything, and that time we could only hear, not see. But even that listening was so impactful that it affected every life, every citizen in this country, in one way or the other. Today, the Mann Ki Baat broadcasts are very popular. Modi, our Prime Minister Modi tweeted, "May the radio keep brightening lives through innovative programs and showcasing human creativity." Broadcasting evolved a lot. We had Akashvani, of course, the first radio. It became Akashvani. Akashvani evolved today. It has got its own, YouTube, its own website. So they have digital media also. Now it is not only audio, it is also visual. So you can see a lot of their news. But unfortunately today, Akashvani, World Broadcasting Day, they have no program here. They have it in Delhi. But in Bombay, there is no program of Akashvani. There is only G20 ke liye. For the G20, there is an entertainment, 4 concerts of classical music. But that is for G20, but no World Broadcasting Day. So I must definitely congratulate this college. Manju sir, it is really wonderful of you all to at least observe this day. We owe it to radio, we owe it to broadcasting. Not because I am a media man, but I am telling you there are certain things which are so important to this country that has played a very vital role in the history of this country, in the destiny of this country, that if you don't acknowledge it, it could be disservice to them. Radio evolved into what is known as the ham. How many of you know about ham? Ham बद्दल किती लोकांना माहिती? Students, you have never heard of ham?
Ham? The one that we eat. आने वाला है ना?
Yeah, it is not from that, but ham-fisted बोलते हैं उसको. Ham जो खाने वाला जो बोलते हैं, it is ham-fisted. उसी से ये नाम लगा है ham को. It is a radio, ham radio. It does not need any connections. No wire, no nothing. But you can understand how important that is. Ham radio was developed. There are about only 22,000 ham users in India. Ham is, you have an equipment of your own. It is a radio station. You can have your own equipment. that you can talk to people who have this ham. It is known as a sign code. Every ham operator has a sign code. It is given by a licensing authority. But the usefulness of ham has happened during the Gujarat earthquake, the Latur earthquake, when all other servers fail, when all other line of communication don't operate. These ham operators, they are known as amateur radio operators. They are ham. They call them hamsters. There are 750,000 hamsters in USA.
I saw the letter written by Himanshu about me, asking you all to attend this class. I told Himanshu, sir, why did you raise the expectation of the students so much when I am not competent enough to deliver this lecture to law students? I'll tell you a secret. Though I am addressing you all today here, next year I am going to appear for the law entrance exam. And I may be a student sitting here, junior to you all. Why? After 40 years of journalism, why law? I tell you, it's a wonderful opportunity. You know, whenever there was any injustice in society, people like me had the opportunity to fight against it, to mete out justice to people who were not getting justice. But our success rate as journalists, means at least my success rate, was hardly 15% or 20%. And all other cases used to fail. Means even though I used to be a journalist, I used to write about it, I used to give front page lead stories. Many of them would not have that much impact. About 15-20% cases, yes, whatever I did, or I sometimes, not in my small newspaper, I used to get some journalists from the mainstream newspaper to write a report. But then I thought that just as much as we journalists do, you budding lawyers, you budding legal professionals can supplement this effort of the journalists. Your one notice will serve as what our lead stories used to do. A legal notice for any wrong that is happening around you can correct things. It is not that it will, without going to the court or without going to the judges, without a trial, you will get results. It's not that. But then sometimes, just as our reports have 20% success, your notices can get more than that. I'll tell you one incident where a friend of mine from Chembur told me that his maid servant, she's a widow, she's running from pillar to post for 9 years and she has not got her pension dues after her husband's death, and she had some 3 children with her. Now this, I was a frog in the well. I was doing reporting only in New Bombay. I didn't know how to get this thing solved because it was a Bombay issue. This girl was from the class 4 employee's wife. I had a friend in Midday. Now Midday was a popular Mumbai paper. I told that friend that, see, this is the case, can you do something about it? He immediately wrote a big story. It was a human interest story. He converted it into a human interest story, though, and it was a widow for 9 years not getting her pension. The impact was so good. M. Ward, Chembur. The impact was so good that within a week she got all the money. It was about hardly 3 or 4 lakh rupees. At that time, this Jan Dhan Yojana and all had not started. She had no bank account. She got the money home, cash. And next day, Midday published that photograph, with her cash, and she was overwhelmed. She didn't know it's so much money. Though it may not sound very big for you all, but for her it was too big. But this is the impact that one story can do, and this is the impact that your one notice can do. So it is something to be very proud of. What you all are doing, the profession that you have taken up, is something that can be so useful to so many people. Today is World Broadcasting Day, but at the same time, I am also told that freedom of speech and freedom of expression, which comes under Article 19 of the Constitution, is what you all are going to deal with. And though the Constitution has not mentioned freedom of press, later judgments have proved that freedom of press is incorporated in the freedom of speech and expression. After the ham story, where you all can also become a hamster by registering with this, but it's an expensive hobby, but very useful in times of emergencies. After ham, then came the FMs. Today, FM radio is so popular. We have over 377 FM stations in this country. FM radio has got a fan following because of their radio jockeys and their hosts. And it has become one of the best companions for especially people who go on long drives, and even people who drive to office, come back. They all enjoy the music, they sing along the way, and while enjoying the music and singing, they get information. They get information about where the roads are clogged. They get information about announcements by government, which is for the welfare of the people, or people can benefit out of it. These small announcements keep coming in FM, apart from your film and other things that interest you most. But it is very popular. This is evolving broadcasting industry. Now, whatever I told you about your legal notices and my media coverages, today lot of people are getting justice and welfare benefits through FM radio. The very good jockeys, radio jockeys, once they are informed about it, they take it up so well that I have personally seen lot of people benefit out of it. Then after this thing comes your YouTube. YouTube is another great way of communicating. I know one most illiterate couple in Koperkerne, most illiterate, but very, very skillful in what you call today's most popular thing is tattooing. They tattoo. Very popular. This couple, somebody gave them the brainwave that you go on YouTube. And he started his tattooing YouTube, and it has become so popular that in YouTube, when you cross some 5 million or something, you get good amount of money. He is making good money, more than what he was making in tattooing. He is making money on YouTube because of the viewership. And not only that, when he comes from Koperkerne, when he comes to a posh area in Sector 17 where I stay, we are sitting there, standing there and moving around with people, and there are youngsters like you all who recognize him so well that they go and take out selfies with him. And we keep watching. So, it, on this World Broadcasting Day, what I'm trying to bring to you is anything is possible today. Everybody is a broadcaster. Everybody is a media person. But everybody cannot be a legal professional unless they pass through these courses. You all are a privileged class today. Earlier, we used to be a privileged class. The media used to be a privileged class. Today, the legal professionals are privileged class because everybody cannot be that. But everybody can be a media person. I prepared a lot of notes which I am not reading now, but while talking of RJs, radio jockeys, you all must be aware of the most successful story, that is Malishka. What a success story she was. What did she do? She expressed our concerns, the concern of the general public. Mumbai was badly battered by potholed roads, and every person traveling in Mumbai everybody was talking about it. But the way Malishka presented it, it had such a deep impact that the government felt embarrassed to such an extent that they raided her house. The then state government raided her house, and what did they find? They found dengue mosquitoes in her flower pot. Because there's stagnant water, it was bound to happen, they found it. But till she raised about the potholes of Mumbai, nobody traced her dengue mosquitoes. After this, they traced. But she did not give up. She made another video. After this video, she followed it up with another video. And then finally, the state government, you know what happened? They had to call her to inspect the roads along with them. The officials inspected the roads along with them, and they explained to her how the civic body functions. This is the power of broadcasting. This is the power of what we are celebrating today here. My future lawyers and legal professionals, I call upon you to have this kind of sensitivity. Making money is important. You have to do your lawyer's job, you have to make money, your parents have spent money for all this. But this kind of sensitivity towards everything in your surroundings is what we must try to bring into our profession. I belong to the Mumbai of that era when we had lot of Parsi lawyers. You know, these Parsis, they were very, very compassionate. These Parsi lawyers took up such cases for the society. They made big money in their profession. They were not penniless or anything. They made big money, but they allocated some part of their energy, some part of their legal expertise for the sake of society. And they grew big. They grew very big. I will draw your attention to one case where I personally had the opportunity to, not the opportunity, sadly I had to be in that. I was working for Indian Airlines. I was at the Bombay airport. There was one contractor. He put up a bill for painting of pigeonhole cupboards. And pigeonhole cupboards at that time was already scrapped. There was no pigeonhole cupboards in Indian Airlines. They had scrapped those cupboards. And this contractor put a bill and he was paid 7 lakh rupees. Now 2 of our clerks, young clerks, very young boys, they've caught this boy, caught this contractor that yes, he's put up a false bill and he has been paid by their bosses. They came and showed it to their boss. Very innocently, they went to the boss and showed that bill. And the boss said, don't talk to anybody, don't talk to the union, don't talk to anyone. You will be rewarded for this. And these two boys went home to sleep that night. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the police went and picked up these two boys, told them that they have to come for inquiry to the police station. This person, one of them, I remember their name so well, Mohan Jadhav and Keluskar. So his wife, young wife, asked him, "Where are you going now? Why are they taking you?" He said, "Don't worry, I've caught a very big robber in the corporation, so they will within few. I'll finish the inquiry and come back." And they went. You know what the cops did? They tortured these two boys to such an extent, they burnt them with cigarette stubs and made them confess that they committed the robbery. They paid the contractor. And next day, when we came to know about it in the office, we went to the cops with the union members and all. I was just a new recruit in Indian Airlines at that time. It was I was 2 years in service. So I was not even a member of the union. But then that boiling thing did not allow me to keep quiet. So I went with the union people. The police at that time, the in charge at the airport, he told these union people that please don't interfere. There is a law, MISA, it is known as Maintenance of Internal Security Act. MISA was in force. And the police has the authority to arrest anybody and keep them confined for more than 15 days. So the union people also went back. They said nothing to do with this. I could not sleep. I could not keep quiet. I saw that these boys were very badly beaten up. Some of my Indian Airline friends helped me. Said we will go. We will try to find out a lawyer who can bail us out. We went to so many lawyers, including Rani Jetmalani, everybody. Nobody showed any sensitivity to a case like this. After a whole day at 4:30, somebody guided us and I went to Radio Club of Bombay. In Radio Club, there was one lawyer, young lawyer, very young lawyer. He was royally drinking beer. I went and told him this. And you know who was this lawyer? He was Jimmy Mehta, the grandson of Firoz Shah Mehta, one of the finest criminal lawyers of Bombay City at that time. I told him this. I showed him the case. Typical, you need that in the blood, you know. That Parsi sentiments came out. He told you, I will come. But I will charge you 3,500 rupees per hearing. And if there is no hearing on that day, you'll have to pay me this and again pay me for the next hearing. Of course, I did not have that kind of money and all that, but I came to Indian Airlines. I told all my colleagues. Very, very pleasantly, within 1 hour, I collected 5,000 rupees from my colleagues. The colleagues were willing to pay. Nobody was willing to come and confront with the cops, police and all. They paid. I went to Jimmy. I told him that this is the money. He came next day, but he told me one thing: ask maximum of your people, staff to come in the court, so that you know the judge is influenced a bit. He should understand. And next day we went to the court. Before this, let me tell you the attitude of the cops. You know, when you go, you will find this. When as a lawyer also, when you all go, you will find this. As a the Madhukar Teli, he was the inspector there. He told me that Nayar, you do whatever you want. I challenge you, I will take this man on remand for another 17 days. For me, it was horrifying. When I saw that cigarette butts and all that thing, I found it horrible. If they are there for another 17 days, this is what they are going to do to him. I told the inspector that, sir, why are you behaving like a filmy hero, challenging me on this? It's a humanitarian thing. It's a human right thing. I am just requesting you to release them on bail and let the case go on. The inspector would not. He was a bravado. He thought that he was doing something great. And I'll tell you why he was doing it. After that, Jimmy Mehta appeared in court for us. The judge pointed out at the number of ladies standing in the court. You know, Indian Airlines had a lot of ladies. Luckily for us, and all these ladies came to the court. The judge made a note of this. See, look at the fear on the face of these ladies. And he granted him bail immediately. The bail was granted. I went to the police station. I said, I'll meet this inspector and tell him that, see, the bail has come. But I never knew it was so difficult. After the judgment, first time in my life, let me tell you, I don't know whether I should put it on record, but this you all should, as budding lawyers, you all should know that for the first time in my life, I had to pay money to get the judgment order. The judgment came around 11:30 or so. Till 2:30, I couldn't get the order. It took me paying money at one or two places, and then I got the order. I had money in my pocket because 3,500 paid to the lawyer, 5,500 was in my pocket. I paid some 25 or 50 rupees or something. But then I had to pay that. This was the first time in my life I did it. After that, when I got the court order, I went to the airport with that judgment order. When I went to the airport, so pleasantly, I found that the entire Indian Airlines staff was standing around the airport to receive me with that order. And when I gave that to the in charge there, I asked him, where is the inspector? He ran away. He didn't come. The inspector didn't come there because he knew he was to be embarrassed. And I was not in the mode of, challenging him or anything. For me, the concern of the staff was very important, what happened to them. These boys went on bail, and then they told us all that happened in the police station. One of them was tortured to such an extent, beaten on the chest, that he developed TB inside the police station. This is the kind of torture they do. And at what? At the behest of whom did they do it? Let me tell you, these two clerks, they caught the culprit, the contractor, but it was the directors of Indian Airlines who were involved. The directors of Indian Airlines, they were into this regularly, passing bills, collecting money, sponsoring contractors and all that. But I didn't know all this because I was very new, I was fresh, I had no legal background, I had no journalistic background at that time. I was just a clerk in Indian Airlines. After getting that, it was it doesn't end here. Why I am telling you all this is, as a legal professional, these are things that will have to be done. I wanted to get this boy admitted to a hospital. No hospital in the vicinity of Santa Cruz. There are so many hospitals there. Bandra, Santa Cruz. No hospital would take them, saying that it is a police case, we can't take them. Luckily, I had a neighbor who was working in a lab in Sion Hospital. I still remember his name, Goregaonkar. He somehow got him admitted to Sion Hospital. After getting him admitted, I wanted a photograph, of the cigarette butts. और सब cigarette से जलाया था हाथ. I wanted a photograph. So I went to the studio in Sion. I said, please come. I want a photo of this in the hospital. They said, police case है ना, हम लोग नहीं आएंगे. कोई नहीं आएगा. Nobody came. Then one photo circle करके माटुंगा में आज भी है वो studio. I went to him. After going to all these studios, then he somehow listened to me. He saw the eagerness, the earnestness of my demand, and he gave me. He said, "I'll take out a photo. I'll give you the negative and the photo wet." Means उसको ठीक नहीं करूँगा, मुझे ड्राई नहीं करूँगा, वो गिला गिला आप लेके जाओ, मेरे इधर सबूत नहीं होना चाहिए. There should be no evidence in my studio. Tomorrow if the cops come, I'll be in trouble. Even to do a good work, there is more fear. But to do bad work, that police people and all that did have no fear. I did that. After getting that photo, I went to 2-3 big newspapers in Bombay. All this was first time in my life. Let me tell you, you all will have everything first time. How to do and how to persist is very important. I went to, finally nobody took that news from me. I had photographs of that cigarette burning and all that. Nobody took. Then there was a paper known as the Daily. Now it is closed, but that paper was there. There was one Clifford karke, one reporter was there. He saw and he published a full page story. It was a full page story. After that, the Indian Airline directors and everybody got wary. The case went on. After the case, when the case went on, there was, after some 4-5 months it went on. After 4-5 months, the next day I got the news that tomorrow is the judgment. So I was very jubilant. I knew that everything will come in my favor. In the favor of our staff, my colleagues. I was very jubilant. I went. And next day I called some of my colleagues and all. I said, we all will be together. We will spite our officials because they are going to be declared culprits. And what happened in the morning, we got the news that this contractor has committed suicide at Lunet Guest House. Baikla mein there is a guest house known as Lunet Guest House. He committed suicide. The whole case fell. Fell in the sense, our boys got relief from the courts, but the culprit went scot-free. Nothing happened to any of the directors of India. What I am trying to tell you is, when we do so much, we fight, we do so much, don't expect that every time you will win. It doesn't happen, but you have to do your best. Nothing happened. In a very filmy style, after 15 years of this incident, I resigned from Indian Airlines. I went to the Gulf. I worked for the American Air Force. I came back. And after 15 years, I met a boy who happened to be my best friend, very close friend of mine. And while discussing with him, I got to know that this contractor was his uncle. Can you imagine how coincidences? A friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, his uncle was this contractor. And as we spoke, he told me the truth. He told me that this man was a black sheep of the family. He had married twice, so we had nothing to do with him. But the story of suicide was totally false. He was killed by the same people who were to be declared as culprits. He was murdered. But paying Indian Airlines directors and all having so much money, they managed to bribe and get the story that he committed suicide. This is what happened in one of the incidents. Now, why I am trying to tell all this is, this was my grooming into media. After that, when I joined media, this experience gave me a very good impact, that I know how to handle these things. And it is very important. especially when we do Article 19 of the Constitution, where all the kinds of freedoms, 6 types of freedoms are given to us. And even in that freedom, there are restrictions. You have 19.2, where restrictions are there. But there are a lot of rulings where the courts have awarded that open criticism of government policies is not a ground for restricting this article. And invariably, most of the government bodies, they try to use this 19.2 to prevent you from availing 19.1a. But luckily for us, most of the courts have given a ruling against this. You take any case, like freedom of the press, we have how to curtail the freedom of the press in our time was, by don't give advertisement to this newspaper. If you give advertisements, especially paper like Times of India, Indian Express, Sakal, there are so many cases, case studies of these newspapers. Their newsprint used to be curtailed. Then in the case of Sakal, they passed a stricture, the legislature passed a stricture that you can have only 10 pages and you can have only so much advertisements. Now what was this? They say no, you have the right to print and express yourself, but we have the right to restrict your newsprint. We can increase the taxes. In these cases, the court has ruled that you can levy taxes, but to a reasonable limit. Wherever we find that the limit has been crossed or something, then Article 19.2 will not be applicable. But Article 19.1a gives you this freedom to express yourself, so publishing a newspaper comes under that. In spite of all this, there were so many cases to restrict newspapers from publishing. And the worst day, as you all know, in the history of India was in June 1975, when Indira Gandhi declared an emergency. Indian Express could not do anything at that time. That was the most loud newspaper that could speak against the government. So what they did as a mark of protest was they published one day a blank page, a full page blank page as a mark of protest. This is a decent way of protest, of course. But then the emergency had a very big impact. All our freedoms were curtailed. Fundamental rights had no meaning. When you know how sacrosanct or how sacred these fundamental rights are, as law students you are surely aware about. But then fundamental rights were grossly violated. And the whole country for 2 years could do nothing about it. Till March 1977, when the emergency was lifted. Personal bias and political considerations dictate judicial prudence. Now I will tell you my favorite subject in media and broadcasting, and I've been associated with the electronic media also. So my favorite subject has always been human rights. In sector 17 where I stay in Vashi, in a ground, it is a public ground, a public garden, Minatai Thakre Udyan. The local corporator constructed a a small recreation center for senior citizens in that garden. His political opponent, now this man had a political opponent who was losing all the elections against him. So what he did is, he went to the then ruling government. Now here, to make my story strong, I will have to take names here. The Mahavikas Agadi at that time, the Shiv Sena, Congress, Rashtrapati, all these people together. At that time, the same man who is today the chief minister, Eknath Shinde, he was the urban development minister. So, our man here, the Congress president of New Bombay, today even he is a lawyer, even that time also he was a lawyer. He went and told Eknath Shinde that, see, we all are a coalition, we are together, Mahavikas Agadi, and I want to stop this man from building that recreation center for senior citizens. Without any application of mine, without any judicial rationality, just because it was Mahavikas Agadi, Eknath Shinde gave a stay on that thing. He gave a stay order. Imagine, सीनियर सिटीजन्स का एक छोटा सा रिक्रिएशन सेंटर के लिए महाविकास आघाड़ी का अर्बन डेवलपमेंट मिनिस्टर गिव्स अ स्टे इन अ स्मॉल प्लेस इन वाशी. Our colleague here, Sudip Golap, he was instrumental in getting this thing to the human rights. The Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commission, suo moto took up this case and lifted the stay. Human Rights Commission lifted the stay and said that you can continue building the recreation center and nobody can, it was illegal to stop it. Afterwards, the Congress president went to the High Court on grounds, see, he is a lawyer, on grounds he says that there could be corruption in the construction of this and misuse of this. In the High Court, the judge heard him. You know what the judge asked this person, this Congress president, the lawyer, the advocate, who himself was an appellant in this case? That the court cannot listen to apprehensions. You know that there will be corruption, there will be misuse. The court asked him a simple question: how many recreation centers are there in New Bombay? He said 20, there are about 27. Now he himself, the appellant himself admitting that there are 27 recreation centers, the judge asked him how many of them are being misused or there has been cases of corruption reported from these. He said none. The judge asked him, then how did you apprehend this? How could you apprehend this? He dismissed the case. And now that recreation center is ready and it is waiting for inauguration. Now let me tell you, Sudip Golap is just a student of your college. He initiated this and the result came. So you can understand the power that you all wield in your courts. The black court is so powerful that if you want, you can do so many of these welfare things in your city. I am not trying to draw your attention to things that you start become social workers and all that. No. You have first your duty towards your parents, towards your profession. You have to make money. You have to achieve higher goals. But what I am calling your attention to is the sensitivity towards your society, towards your community. All the instances that I am trying to talk about, I am trying to put it as simply, without using legal jargon, that these things are going to be very, very useful. And you people are going to be the pillars of this. You all are known as already one of the three pillars of democracy. And if you want to sustain democracy, then this freedom has to be protected more than any sacred thing that you value. It is the most sacred thing. But at the same time, when you have this freedom, you cannot allow this freedom even to be violated. You have the freedom to move anywhere. You have the freedom to protest. You have the freedom to form associations, unions. But that doesn't give you the freedom to disrupt other people. What I am referring to is the Shaheen Bagh case. The Shaheen Bagh people, they stopped all the 4 roads. But the authorities later on allowed them to protest. You cannot stop anybody from protesting. They have their reason for protesting. You can allow them to protest. They were allowed to protest, but they were also instructed to leave the movement of people and traffic to allow that. So one part of it was allowed. So this is about freedom, to up to what extent you can go. You cannot just simply take away all the rights in the name of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights has a parallel fundamental duty also. It is your duty to see that people can communicate, people can move, people can secure their lives. All this is part of that also. Of course, regarding this, this is, I think, which you all will know. In newspaper industry, we have 2 fundamental rights. The newspaper industry, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, this is one of the fundamental rights. And the other one is to engage in any profession, occupation, trade, business, industry. Now, these are 2 fundamental rights which the newspaper industry has. So all these cases that I told you, Sakal, Times of India, the government has tried to stop their publications by putting restrictions on them. And those were, the courts did not allow it, saying that they were fundamental rights. Then as I told you about that midday thing, where that maid servant got all her pension back. There was another case where one newspaper put the thing, सैनिक की पत्नी 40 साल से पेंशन के लिए भटक रही है. It is almost the same case. Widow of a soldier going here and there for a pension since 40 years. A daily paper in Rajasthan reported this. The Rajasthan High Court Chief Justice, he took cognizance of this report. I was telling you that this has got a lot of power behind it. And he was able to decree that she was entitled to the benefits which are to be given to a pension family, and directed the government to pay the widow all the arrears of pension within 1 month, and in default, interest at the rate of 12% on the arrears. Next we come, another story which is very close to my, this thing is the story of Nambi Narayanan. I don't know how many of you have heard the story of Nambi Narayanan. Now, of course, everybody must have heard because of the film. Rocketry film in which R. Madhavan was a director, and he himself acted the role of Nambi Narayanan. This man was a great scientist. He was working for ISRO. He developed a technology, cryogenic technology, along with the Russians. And this technology would have taken us far ahead of the other countries in space research, which was not palatable to other superpowers. Now, there is no evidence of what I am telling you now, but then it is generally believed that the Americans had a role to play in this, because the Americans did not want Russia and India to grow some technology in which they would be outsmarted. They got two women, they used two women to accuse Nabi of giving away the secrets of ISRO, and he was jailed. Again, fundamental rights violated, and the way he was tortured and his family suffered, that is a human rights issue. 50 days he was in jail. The opposition raised a hue and cry. The media played a very vital role in supporting this man, Nambi Narayanan. But by that time his whole family was psyched to the extent that when they went to they went in an auto, the auto rickshaw identified them, he asked them to get out. They go to a shop, the shopkeeper doesn't give them anything. When the society behaved so badly with him. And mind you, he is a genius. This is what we do to our geniuses, just because it was not in favor of the American powers. The Kerala government was hand in glove with this, and they transferred the case to CBI. And after transferring the case to CBI, it came to the knowledge that the IB officials, the Intelligence Bureau officials, were torturing him inside to make him confess against some of the top bosses in ISRO. Indian Space Research Organization, some of the top bosses there was rivalry among the staff. They wanted him to lynch those people, which he refused. And after that, CBI submitted a closure report and he was released. And then the whole story came out. In spite of this closure report, the Kerala government challenged this in the Kerala High Court and revoked the permission to CBI to investigate the case. But a Supreme Court bench stepped in, saying that the CBI found no case had been made out and ordered the Kerala government to pay rupees 1 lakh to each of the accused. Nambi Narayanan afterwards, in due course, even the Human Rights Commission intervened, and then he got a compensation of 1 crore rupees, then another 50 lakh rupees, and then this culminated in the Indian government giving him a Padma Bhushan award. Finally, after all this torture, this media backlash and all that, he got a Padma Bhushan award. Now this award and his case is portrayed so well in that film Rocketry, where R. Madhavan plays the role of Nambi Narayanan. Now in a country where a top scientist can be violated this way, his family destroyed, you can imagine the responsibility on your young shoulders for this country. I am again and again highlighting this because you have a great responsibility. And I want you to send, on this World Broadcasting Day, I want to sensitize you to this. Even if one person in this audience gets sensitized today, I will consider myself standing here worthwhile. Otherwise, this whole exercise will be futile if if we carry on with the chalta hai attitude, the jugaad attitude, the chalta hai attitude. No, we should be very, very intolerant to injustice, especially public injustice. As lawyers, future legal professionals, this is a responsibility on your shoulder. You know, in your law books and all, you will regularly come across this Romesh Thappar versus State of Madras. Romesh Thappar versus State of Madras is just, you know, the Madras government banned the entry of his newspaper. It was known as Crossroads. Crossroads was a newspaper in which he used to criticize the government regularly. Now, criticizing the government, he was not gaining anything. He was only trying to highlight the lacuna in administration. But then the Madras government thought of banning it. Now, this is how they pressurize, you know, even good things happening. The Supreme Court held that the right of the circulation of the newspaper lies solely with the publication company, and the state cannot interfere with the same. The ground of public safety under Article 19(2) is not a reasonable restriction, and hence the ban cannot be imposed in Article 19. Under Article 19(2), it cannot be imposed. So this is, Romesh Thappar is a very common thing in your. Now I will tell you a small incident, how, you know, we media people, how the good people in the media are attacked, or how we are, you know, I used to, again, Sudeep knows about it. I used to be very sincere in reporting in the Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation. Means, how do you be sincere? You attend all the meetings. I used to attend all the general body meetings and the standing committee meetings. And my report used to be fine. So, many of the, it used to be the discomfort of lot of politicians, lot of officials, you know, that me attending all the meetings and reporting everything. So some of their wrong things used to be reported. So somehow I do not know how it happened, but one person, reporter of one important newspaper of Maharashtra, Lok Satta, a reporter of Lok Satta, very senior reporter, he filed a story. It was against me. The story read that 19वा packet, ज्येष्ठ पत्रकार, means 19th packet to a senior journalist. Now he was referring to me because I was he didn't have the guts to take my name, because you know what happens. If the name was taken, we have the option of defamation. But he escaped that. He did not take my name. He just hinted that I was the one who was doing it. You know how it is. Now I can say this openly because no defamation will come. This was published in Lok Satta. There are 16 members in the standing committee. So 16 packets, every meeting, every Wednesday we used to have a meeting. So all the tenders, you know, crores of rupees of tenders are passed every meeting. So उस tender का share का कुछ packet बनता है, and those packets are given to all the 16 members of the standing committee. It happens everywhere. Huh? That is what we are now. It has become apparent. How it has become apparent is because when this news came, there was no defamation case. So that means they have accepted it. ये होता है करके. After the 16 members, one packet goes to the mayor, one packet goes to the municipal commissioner. So 18 packets. So the 19th packet, it seems, I was taking. So it was a psychological, you know, pressure to put me down, to make me stop reporting. And the best part of it is, the standing committee chairman who does this, who gives away these packets, he also kept quiet. In fact, what I was expecting is he will raise a voice for me because he is the one who is giving the packet, so he knows whether I taken it or not. But he kept quiet. See how politicians, bureaucrats, and even our media people sometimes they are hand in glove. Finally, I am still there in Navi Mumbai. I still report, I still attend meetings. And this reporter who's even today in Lok Sabha, he's become one of the biggest contractors in the municipal corporation. He takes contracts worth crores of rupees. And of course, finally it is not that I am worried about what he is making. See, there is karma. You know, in all what we do today, there is karma. It plays its role. Whether people want to accept it or not, whatever you do, you have to pay for it. It all comes back. So what I am trying to say is, when you do good work, you have to be prepared for these brickbats. And sometimes the brickbats may be very cruel. It may be unbearable also at times. But then your integrity gives you the strength. Your honesty gives you the strength to bear all this. And in court, when you take up cases, there will be many a times that you might be lured or provoked to accept cases even if it is a wrong case. It is up to you to decide whether to take it up or not. Like when you find that even a person who has attacked the sovereignty of our country, even he gets a lawyer to fight for him. So it is disturbing, but then that is what life is all about. No defamation case came. The thing continued. Now, today, you all must be aware of the defamation case under Article 499 of the IPC, Rahul Gandhi's case. What did Rahul Gandhi say? He said, सब चोर लोग मोदी ही क्यों होता है? Immature that he is, he has to be a leader of his stature, should have been very careful with what he was saying. But he insulted the entire community, which invited the ire of the community, and some BJP fellow went to the court and they filed a case. He lost his seat in parliament, he lost his house in Delhi. But yet the court has, now he has gone to the Supreme Court. Now August 4 is the date. It is a very interesting case for all of you to keep track of, because you will find a lot of clients coming to you with such cases. A small thin line of decision making or a thin line of difference can tilt the case this way or that way. Rahul Gandhi is hopeful, but similarly, the respondents, they are confident of lynching him there in the Supreme Court. We can wait for the result. There is another very interesting case like this. R. Rajgopal versus State of Tamil Nadu. You know, R. Rajgopal versus State of Tamil Nadu, there was a murderer. He was known as Otto Shankar. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. After being sentenced to life imprisonment, he was to be hanged. He wrote a book on he wrote an autobiography. He wrote his book. He gave it to his wife before being hanged, saying that take it to so and so people, get it published. What he had revealed in that book of his was the involvement of the police and some authorities in his murder game. In the series of murders that he did, he highlighted the role of the cops, and the court, what he was hanged, no doubt. He went to get this published. The IG of the prison, he came to know that this man is going to, that this lady is going to get the book published. And he knew that they were all culprits, so they knew that they will be trapped. The IG alleging that this book is untrue, this book is defamatory, he wanted to stop the publication of this book. He warned the editors against publishing and threatened strict legal action. The IG of prison, when he threatens, it has got some dangerous ramification for those who are involved. The editor filed the petition against the IG to prevent him from violating the prisoner's right to freedom. Imagine, in our country, judicial system is so good that the prisoner's right to freedom of speech and expression is also protected. You can imagine where a prisoner's right is protected. The Supreme Court held that the publication of the same cannot be prevented. But the respondent, see, the Supreme Court's verdict is so beautiful, it tells that you cannot stop publication, but gives freedom to the respondent that you can file a defamation case after the book is published. Then it is up to them to how to prove the defamation and all that. But the facts will speak. It will be out. People will come to know. And if they file the defamation case, it will be against who? Maybe the publishers. The publisher has got that it is written by someone. One story I would like to tell you. Want me to stop? Okay. I will just tell I've been asked to stop, so I'll just tell you 4 or 5 things immediately in a very short distance. You know that there was this is something about World Broadcasting Day which I missed. There was a naval mutiny in 1946. The naval mutiny, young cadets on the naval ships, they were influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's Bharat Chhoro in 1942 and all that. So they picked up a quarrel in the ship, on the ship, about bad chicken in the kitchen, and they mutinied. What they did is, one fine day they caught all the officers of the Navy, British Navy, and they pulled down the Union Jack and raised the tricolor. After this mutiny, Lord Attlee, who was the Prime Minister of UK, he said, now it is time to leave India. This is, I am talking about February 1946. He said, now it is time to leave India. Because when the forces have revolted, we cannot stay there. So, I am trying to tell you the importance of the naval mutiny in the freedom struggle. But what people do not know, this is a 2-line thing in your history books in school. Only 2 lines about naval mutiny. Of course, it cannot be called a mutiny, it was a freedom struggle. But our books tell it is a mutiny. I had organized a program in Vashi where I called Mahatma Gandhi's great grandson, Tushar Gandhi, to declare that this was not a mutiny. It was a freedom struggle and he did it. Tushar Gandhi accepted it. But what happened in that mutiny is 3 days Mahatma Gandhi kept negotiating with these boys because Mahatma Gandhi did not want any violence. So he kept negotiating, but the Britishers surrounded these ships and shot all these boys. Their bodies were thrown in the sea. We lost a lot of cadets in that mutiny. But you know, why I'm telling this on world broadcasting, how the mutiny took place. On one day, Visakhapatnam, Calcutta, Lahore, Mumbai, Chennai, all these ports, all the ships put down the Union Jack and hoisted the tricolor. How was it possible? You know, the telegraph operators on these ships, they use the Morse code. And they use the Morse code in the South Indian language. So which the Britishers and others could not find out. I am telling you this, I am quoting this from the book, The Mutiny of the Innocents by BC Dutt, who was one of the participants in this, and he escaped. He escaped means he did not die in the firing. So he wrote The Mutiny of the Innocents. In that he has mentioned that this Morse code, that was another way of broadcasting, helped the mutineers to bring down the Union Jack all over the country. So another great event, I mean, how radio waves were used for the freedom struggle. We had the Azad Hind radio, we had the Congress radio at that time. They were all, you know, illegally operating radio stations for the freedom struggle. This is one thing I want to tell you. The second thing I wanted to tell you is, there are 2-3 good stories, but anyway, I'll tell you one story and stop it. You know, SIDCO, this is for future lawyers. The SIDCO's real estate department, they have done so much injustice to the tribals in this city. There were a lot of tribals, and all these tribals, they owned land which was worth crores of rupees. And some of them died without a penny. Some of them got TB and died. Why? Because the lands were taken away by falsely impersonating their names with some other names under the BS of the builders. This has happened and I have reported it also. No defamation case has been filed against me. That means there is some truth in this. SIDCO has to a great extent caused lot of damage in this particular aspect. The tribals who were to get compensation, they never got the compensation. The villagers, 12.5% land, 4.25% means was deducted from their land, but no accountability. They were to be given civic amenities which were not given to them. So these are all human rights violations. I wanted to spend another 15 minutes on human rights. I am not doing it. But thank you everybody for your very patient hearing. Thank you once again, because the class indicate that you really want me to go. Thank you.